Welcome to the Strategic Management Accounting course, where we teach the value-adding steps and processes necessary to execute strategy. Whether you are just starting up or looking to grow your business, then this course is for you. With your host, Dr. Neil O'Connor.
Hi, welcome back. It's Neil here, and I want to go into the different parts of decentralization, measurement, incentives, transfer pricing, so we can get a full understanding of what this framework is all about. So let's go to the good stuff, shall we? So first of all is decentralization and control. The reasons for decentralization: better access to local information, cognitive limitations, more timely response, focusing of central management, training and evaluation of segment managers, and motivation of segment managers. Now, each of these reasons they're kind of related, but let's better access to local information. So as you decentralize, you give more information to salespeople who are on the front line. They will get feedback from customers first and foremost. Customers will complain. Customers will say, I don't like that. Your competitor down the road has the same product or service for 10% cheaper. And the salesman finds out immediately. And so this is what I mean. We get local information, we get fast information. So you want to empower salespeople to respond to that information. That empowerment process is decentralization. Cognitive limitations, and that's really associated with the information overload that's in your mind. Okay, so if I'm the big owner of the organization, I have 5,000 people working for me, and I'm making all the decisions. Well, guess what? I will not get any sleep. I need to do 100 hours of work every day to make all those decisions, but there's not enough time in the day to make all the decisions, so I need to decentralize. Okay, my cognitive power, I do not have the power to make all the decisions, right? That's what I mean by cognitive limitations. More timely response, similar to the first two, because I'm given more power to salespeople to make decisions, then they can respond faster to a customer. They'd say, hey, Mr. Customer, oh, just a minute. Okay, you're going to go down the road for a 10% cheaper product. Let's see if I can do a deal for you. Okay, how about we bundle in another package to go with our product? What do you think about that, Mr. Customer? Customer say, oh, well, that changes it because competitor down the road does not have this other package. You see, allowing the salesman to have more power enables them to have a more timely response to a change in the market that's caused by competition. You see that? Focusing of central management. Now central management do not have to worry about the day-by-day customer interactions. They can focus on the month-by-month, the 6 month by 6 month, the big strategy, the theme of the organization, the mission of the organization, the vision of the organization, new product development. Where is the organization going? Where is it not going? They can focus on the big picture. Central management can do that. Training and evaluation of segment managers. Now, segment managers, because they're able to make more decisions, now you can actually decentralize the training. Now you can actually give them more experience, and therefore they're able to grow and actually provide more meaningfulness in their job role. Okay. Finally, motivation of segment managers, which is related to the second last one. Because they have more meaning in their job role, they're going to be naturally more motivated, because when they go to work, they don't always have to defer to the boss all the time. When there is a query submitted by a customer, they can make a decision immediately, just like that. And so these are the reasons for decentralization. Now you can bundle all of these reasons together and say, well, they're basically caused by knowledge transfer costs. And basically that's probably the easiest way to describe it. And so what causes these reasons. Normally when an organization gets larger and when an organization has more competition, okay, and there's more uncertainty environment caused by government regulation, or when an organization goes into a new country, then often they may set up a branch so they can start to localize and get more information about what is going on in that country. They can't just sort of just copy their own head office practices into the other country and expect the same kind of response in terms of productivity of the employees, in terms of market response and things like that. Okay, so the environment, the strategy, by going into another country, you're creating another environment, different set of competitors, okay, and then there's greater size, so you've got information needs there. That causes all knowledge transfer costs. And so size, competition, change in the environment, or impact on knowledge transfer costs. Here are the real details of where knowledge transfer costs impacts inside the organization. And then that leads us to say, look, we can't stand anymore. We need to decentralize. We need to give more authority to managers on the front line. Yes. But there are drawbacks of decentralization. And what are they? It may hinder coordination among strategic business units. Now you decentralize different strategic business units, they will go and do their own things, and you lose some of your focus of your strategy. Okay, one important thing about having a focused strategy for a multinational is coordinating all of the business units. We know that. It may cause conflict among strategic business units because one business unit wants to do one thing, one business unit wants to do another, and they both have their own authority to make different decisions. It may conflict. A customer may go to one business unit while they're visiting Melbourne in Australia and get some support. Then they go to another one in Sydney, and the Sydney unit says, oh, I'm sorry, you're going to have to pay a little bit extra for this support, because we don't serve customers out of state. And so the customer may get peeved off because that support is not consistent between the different city divisions. You see that? So the customer may see this conflict before the organization. And so this is an important thing to understand. All right. So as I mentioned earlier, the knowledge transfer costs and agency cost trade-off. As knowledge transfer costs go down, okay, because of decentralizing, our agency costs are going up, all right, and that's the cost of managers doing the wrong thing. Okay, any conflicts or any lack of coordination of strategy, but for the most part, it is also the controls you need to put in place. The controls you need to put in place in order to manage these managers, all right? So measurement and also the incentives you need to give. So knowledge transfer costs go down, agency costs go up, and so we've got to try and balance these things. We can't just centralize everything because too much for our brain, too much cognitive overload, information overload. We can't handle it, all right? And there was about 4, 5 or 6 other things, the reasons why we want to decentralize. All right, it's the only way to grow in most cases. All right, so we have made the decision to decentralize, and knowledge transfer costs are going down. I don't have to make all the decisions. I can focus on my strategy. I can focus on the big picture and get all my sales managers, different divisions, doing what they do best. But now we need to control all of these divisions, otherwise they get out of control. So agency costs are going up in that process. Knowledge transfer costs going down, agency costs going up. Yes. So let's have a look at the other side of this balance or imbalance between knowledge transfer costs and agency costs. Knowledge transfer costs have gone down. We have decided to decentralize. So now we need to have a system to assign some responsibility. Now, if you assign some responsibility, then you need to measure the performance of the responsibility. And finally, if you assign, then measure, then you need to have incentive. Otherwise, the H, that's the hard work. In the DHL, that's direction, hard work, and personal limitations. of the manager, the hard work or the motivation of the manager will not happen. Yes. So we've got these three things that we need to balance. Now we decentralize, we need to balance. So we create a cost center, a revenue center, investment center, okay, or a profit center. But now we need to have some measures and we need to have some incentives. Yes, you got it. We need to balance these three things. If one of them's missing, then we have problems. And so you need to understand what happens if one of these factors is missing. Why do they need to be balanced? Transfer pricing will cover in another section. But let's just think about this balance between the three wheels of the car. This is the only car in the world where you can take the rear wheel off and drive around on three wheels. So we want to have that balance between decentralization, measurement, and rewards, and we call it a three-legged stool. Have you ever sat on a stool and found that it overbalanced? No, the three legs are always the same length. You know that. And this is a really important concept for you to take hold of, because once we create the first leg, decentralization, we need to create two more legs, and that is we need to measure and we need to reward. Yes, and we until we do those two extra legs, we don't have a stool to sit on. That's what we're here now. All right, and so we've got these different scenarios where if we don't have measurement, first scenario, or we don't have decentralization, second scenario, or third scenario, we don't have rewards. Let's see what happens. Scenario 1, we don't have measurement. This will result in the worker not being motivated to put in their best interests, as there will be an unparalleled match between incentives and effort without proper measurement. In addition, there will be a lack of direction, as the incentives given to employees may be seen as an impartial treatment and affect a team's morale. So you need to have measures there that form the basis of different incentives that are being given. And you might think, oh, Frank, he got more than me. How come? Oh, is a boss, he's the boss's favorite. Oh, that's why he got a better incentive than you. And you get peeved off. Why? Because it doesn't seem to be fair. You know, shouldn't the rewards be given on basis of performance? I've been working my butt off. I've got all these sales. I believe my sales are better than this other person. And I got all these customer responses. Just because a boss doesn't like me, I don't get as higher incentives. I don't get as high a bonus. That's not fair. I'm not going to be motivated. You see that? So if we don't measure, we don't have transparency or visibility of the efforts of the various divisional managers, and they're going to get peeved off because of the unfairness, even though you start paying out incentives. The other thing is that divisional managers might go and do their own thing because there's not enough visibility of what they should do and should not do, and that could cause harm to the company, the reputation, lost sales. What about if we don't have decentralization? Oh, you've got it. Knowledge transfer costs go up or go down. You know knowledge transfer costs are going to go up through the roof. Yes, they know what they should do, but then managers are not given authority. And now managers are not going to be very happy either. I'm a divisional manager. I'm in charge of this division, but I have to refer all the big decisions to my boss. Why can't I make them myself? Why can't I be responsible for the KPIs in my organization, in my division? Yes. So they're not able to make the crucial decision. There are tight controls in place to measure them, thus they may result in frustration and a lack of motivation. In addition, there will be also an increase in knowledge transfer costs, as the top management may not have access to a local environment. In knowledge transfer costs, remember, cognitive overload. Okay, information overload. Okay, and you get the information too late, and so you have poor decision making, inaccurate decision making, because the decisions are made too late. So that's what happens in no decentralization. What happens when there's no reward? There'll be a lack of motivation. Even though they'll have the autonomy to do anything and measurements of effort are in place, they are still going to end up with fixed or comparable pay. Here, there is a case when incentives do not match up to the effort put in. So you've got the authority. You're being measured and monitored, but you do all the right thing. You perform better than your other you perform better than the neighboring division in sales, but you don't get a better reward. And you're thinking, why should I try hard? Why don't I just do average? Why? Because the person that works harder than me is not going to get paid more. And so I will just do average. I will not try harder. I will not grow my division because there's no rewards. So what I've just taken you through here is the three scenarios. If there's no measurement, then we lose accountability. If there's no decentralization, knowledge transfer costs go through the roof. Yay! If there's no reward, then we lose that motivation. We lose that motivational factor, that incentives that will force you to really try hard and hit those KPIs. Okay, got that? So we need those three legs of the stool to go together. And your focus should understand if one of those legs are missing, then what are the consequences? Yes. All right. So that's what I've taken you through now. The three-legged stool, 1, 2, and 3. And now we can go in a little bit more detail of the 1, 2, and 3. We're going to cover responsibility centers. Then we're going to look at transfer pricing. In another section, in another week, we're going to have a look at financial measures, return on investment, okay, residual income, EVA, economic value added, and then we can look at rewards associated with them. But that's in another week, in another section. For now, the rest of this section, maybe in the next part, we're going to look at responsibility centers and the types and transfer pricing. So what do we mean by financial results controls? Because we're a large organization, accounting is the best aggregate measurement system to track, monitor, and hold accountable the responsibility of different divisions, of different managers. And so we call these responsibility parts responsibility centers. Now, when we talk about three elements here, it's basically the three-legged stool again. All right, so responsibility centers, formal management processes, which is the measurement, and then we've got motivational contracts, which is the incentives. All right, decentralization, measurement, and incentives. So we're not going to go into too much detail about the management processes, but that includes planning and budgeting. And in the following week, we're going to look at motivational contracts, where we look at the incentives. So what are the types of responsibility centers? Responsibility accounting has the following type of incentives. There is a cost center, only responsible for costs. There's a revenue center that's only responsible for revenues. Profit center, responsible for both revenues and costs, and an investment center responsible for revenues, costs, and investments. So you can think about it, for the most part, cost centers are very, very popular when you want to keep the lid on costs. You want to control costs, and especially for non-sales divisions. Whereas a sales division may either be a revenue center or a profit center. Investment center is more likely for a subsidiary that is in another country that has a distinct product and service package and sort of an independent operation from your own head office in your home country, right? So keep that in mind. These are the different types of responsibility centers. Now, there are two different methods of implementing. There are two different methods of implementing cost strategic business units for producing and support departments. The first one is a discretionary cost method, and the second one is an engineered cost method. And what do we mean by the two? Most organizations around the world do use a discretionary cost method. That is, you have a budget and you have a 1 million budget, and your last year inflation's gone up 5%. We will give you a 1.05 million budget this year, and that's you using a discretionary amount. You're kind of using a rolling budget and maybe adjusting it for inflation, you see. So you're not taking into account the efficiency or the effectiveness of the productivity of the people in that unit. You're not looking at the inputs, you're not looking at the outputs, you're just looking at a fixed amount, and you're using historical benchmarks, or you're using benchmarks of other competition around to say how much the budget should be. That's discretionary and very much top down. Whereas an engineered cost method is, okay, you're the records keeping office in the university, you have a $10 million budget and you're serving maybe 10,000 students. So that's $1,000 per student. You're going to serve 11,000 students in the coming year. So you should have $11 million budget. However, we want you to make a 10% improvement in productivity. So we're going to give you only 10 million, and basically for the 11,000 students, we're going to basically engineer that cost to serve each student from 1,000 per student down to 900 and a bit per student. Can you see that? So we're focusing on the input-output relationship. We're actually focusing on productivity improvements. We're focusing on efficiency enhancements to get more effective productivity out of a division. And that is an engineered cost method. And you need to have very good measures to really understand that. But that's another way of negotiating, either from a divisional manager point of view or from a head office point of view, negotiating with a higher or lower budget in the coming period. And if you're facing increasing competition, then the engineered cost method becomes more effective because it places greater accountability on what you are focusing your costs on in that division. How much does it really cost you to serve each student? Are there some students that are more costly than others? Is some way that we can deal with problematic students that actually cause more of our resources than other students? You see, student profitability analysis. You got that, haven't you? All right. So you see how the engineer cost method changes the whole mentality of a division. When they know that that budget is tied to how efficiently they are dealing with record keeping of the students. Yes, so there you have a discretionary cost method, which is probably most popular because it doesn't put that pressure on various cost center units. But then there's the engineer cost method, which I believe should be used more frequently than what it is. So let's just have a look at the next part, and basically a summary of what we mean by discretionary cost centers and engineer cost centers. So discretionary, we're just focusing on inputs. Here's your money. We're not going to look at your input to output conversion or your productivity. Whereas engineered, we're focusing on the efficiency. And we're using that to justify the budgets that are given or taken away from period to period. Okay, now we want to go to transfer pricing. Okay, that was the responsibility centers. Now we're going to transfer pricing. I want to cover that in another section. In the next session, I want to take you through transfer pricing. We're going to go into that in much more detail. Transfer pricing strategy, how you do the calculations, what are the minimum and maximum transfer prices to use depending on the circumstances, and so forth. but we'll cover that in the next section. Thank you for watching, and catch you in the next session. Bye for now.